So hello and welcome to Proto. I shall quickly just jump into this screen here so I can realign that. Hopefully that fits. Yeah, hi, welcome. This is Proto, a program that we're testing out here on Cast.live. The idea here is to basically take ideas from a first principles perspective and just iterate in a collaborative manner, in a high bandwidth, low latency form, where we're going to be interacting inside this Figma file. And at some point in the future, we'll be open to having, folks comment and stuff. So it should be sort of basically a nice and rich environment. Today we are going to be actually interacting with James and Roberto from Gimbal Labs with special guest Tevo. So today we're going to be looking at how we can connect the front end to the back end, right? So with all the promise that crypto brings, right? So crypto brings, a lot of rich promise in the context of, I suppose, three things I would like to highlight. One is communication. The second is collaboration. And the third, which actually sort of, in a nice sort of closed loop way, is compensation, right? So all these elements, fundamentally change how we think about design and digital and physical, and solve problem solving. So the idea behind Proto is basically sort of to explore this particular sort of trifecta and element. Specifically today, as I said, we're going to be looking at the front and back end and linking these two, right? Because the idea here is to have a rich environment where people are not only able to understand how things work on the front end, right? What Figma allows for is, folks be able to actually have a look at, the entire canvas and all the different pages that we have set up here. But also actually allows, someone viewing to try out the prototype, and sort of click from screen to screen and see what the user experience is like. We believe that it's important to not only have an understanding of that, but also additionally of the back end, right? So that's what we're going to be digging into on this particular session of Proto. So without further ado, I shall hand it over to James to basically expand on Gimbal Labs and so on.
Thanks, Day.
Sorry.
This is so in addition to being an early prototype episode of Proto, this is also a collaboration with Gimbal Labs, and this is going to be part of our newest starter kit, number 5. So we're broadcasting this on Wednesday, the 16th of December. The full starter kit will come out tomorrow, and it consists of 2 parts. The part you're seeing right here, and then a call to action, a contest to go out into your community and spend ADA at a local business. So more on that part to come. We're really excited to send people out with that challenge. The reward for our challenge is that as soon as native tokens go online in late January or early February, we're just going to mint 25 special Gimbal Labs commemorative tokens to commemorate this thing. They're not worth anything. This is not an airdrop. They're not for sale. This is just for fun because we can, okay? And every step in this process, things that we're doing right now, they seem really special, just like when you get a new toy or a musical instrument or a new bike or something, right? You just want to play with it all the time. And then eventually you realize the utility of it and you're just using it every day, right? Eventually it's not going to be a big deal to mint tokens. But right now it's really freaking exciting. So that's what we're going to do. So what's super exciting is that the goals of Gimbal Labs and the goals of Proto really align right here. In both cases, we think that looking at the back end even if you're not going to be a full-time developer, full-time engineer, right? Just looking at the back end increases your literacy about what's happening so that hopefully you can go off and have ideas. So the purpose of this video right now is not for everybody to go out and do what Roberto is showing you right now, although we are going to share his scripts and you are going to be able to play with them. The real goal is exposure. So you know what's going on in the background. And, we're looking forward to bringing more people into these conversations so that you can share your ideas as you see what the tech can do. Tebo, any questions about that?
No, not really.
Yeah, no, that was really good. Yeah, so yeah, we're looking at front end, back end specifics. Do you wanna perhaps just expand on the mainnet, testnet?
Absolutely. Okay,
Yeah.
so when Roberto shares his screen in just a minute, he's going to be working from the command line. We're also going to look at some of the scripts he wrote that run in Bash. And these are Bash, right? These are not Bades.
Yeah.
Good. So
pure Bash.
Pure Bash.
They haven't been incorporated in some meaningful way, which is the Bates framework. Bates is nothing in itself. It's just a way to share these little snippets in Bash that you usually call a script 1.sh, and it means nothing, and it's not very human friendly. And Bates it's just a naming convention and a way to sort those scripts. But this is just a .sh script.
Perfect. Yeah, so you've successfully protected us from that level of abstraction, right? Which is funny, like by making it easier for yourself, right? When you understand something, abstracting it can make it easier. But if you're a newcomer trying to understand what something is when the abstraction has already been done, that could be really hard to understand. So we're going to go backwards and basically what I'll link in GitHub to accompany this starter kit is not just the scripts, but a few suggestions for trying to make sense of them. And basically, you're going to be able to read the Cardano documentation alongside the scripts that we're going to look at today, and you're going to recognize the documentation directly in these scripts, okay? So anybody who wants to figure that out, you will. There's a few variables on Cardano CLI, the command line tools for Cardano. There's a few variables that allow you to say which network you're connecting to when you spin up a node. So if you're running a stake pool, if you want to connect a node to the main net, you would specify main net in that, right? But as we're going to see in just a minute, instead of choosing to specify the main net, you can, what is it, marry testnet? I don't have mine open right now.
We will be testing the IOHK Launchpad testnet, which is an advanced testnet. It's already on Mary era, and it's a testnet for external, for example, for exchange or external companies that want to try things that will come later, but they need to start getting familiar to the new features. So this testnet is already on Mary. It forked through Allegra already. It supports multi-assets, which is the coolest thing we have these days.
Oh, yeah. So yesterday, just to test this out, Roberto, well, a couple days ago, you made some gimbal tokens just to show that you could. And then yesterday, I received from Roberto my first ever token bundle on the testnet. So he sent me 4 ADA and a handful, 4 test ADA. They're not real, right? And a handful of gimbals. And then with the ADA that he sent me on the testnet, I was then able to spin up some workshop maybe tokens. then I made something local to my community. So I live in a town called Worcester. We sometimes call ourselves Wormtown. And so I think I made some Wormtown tokens just because you can. And what's amazing, you're going to see this in a minute, is in a bundle, you can take any number of native assets that exist on the Cardano network, and you can bundle those all together into one transaction and send them off. So when we're talking about like how literacy might give way to new ideas, this is an example of that, because I know personally, as soon as I saw this transaction bundle, I was like, oh, so I can compensate somebody and give them a token of recognition, and then maybe give them a token that gets them, like access to health insurance or the company store, or the list goes on from there. So all of these ideas that would eventually have to be expressed on the front end, we also have, we have the chance to see what they look like behind the scenes.
Yeah. If I could, Roberto, I feel like there's a possibility in, I suppose, someone who's familiar on the surface with what something like Adrestia is, might be like, oh, wait, hang on. So you're talking about exchanges, and the link that I know that exchanges have with Cardano is via Adrestia. So they might be thinking, oh, wait, hang on, is that it? Or I think it might be helpful to actually kind of maybe communicate the distinction between the sort of the play environment, which is a testnet, and the function of what Adrestia is.
Okay, I'm not any expert on Adrestia, but we could simplify it by saying that Adrestia is a whole suite of software and libraries. For example, Cardano Rosetta, which is, I think it's part of Adrestia, is an API for, let's say, translate in a universal language the use of tokens. And that's part of software that IOHK is writing for exchange and external integrators. So this Launchpad testnet, it's will be just one piece of this Adrestia environment. So
okay,
yeah, more or less.
Cool. Yeah, I mean that in and of itself. Again, I think it's important to sort of to highlight the nature of this conversation is currently not structured, right? I mean, we've got a rough structure, but the idea is to sort of to have it sort of be jazzy and have it just sort of emerge gradually. We're going to be talking for an hour, so there's a natural kind of cadence to an opening, a middle, and a conclusion towards the end. However, like obviously in talking about all this, we're sort of throwing around different terms, so I feel like I'm conscious of someone watching this not understanding, okay, what level of understanding or knowledge do I need? So in the future, I think what's going to influence the structure of this thing is going to be actually being cognizant of that, because some people might not know what the hell Adrestia is, or even know what a testnet is, or what Mary Allegro, and any of these terms. So I feel like moving forward that would make a lot of sense to actually have that structure, right? Cool. Awesome. Thanks for that, Roberto. Right. So now, shall we? Any particular points that anyone wants to make?
I would ask a question about the token bundles you have. I assume all these tokens are native tokens, which means they are made in the testnet and they are only locally used. But we also know about Cardano that they offer like ERC conversion tokens, which take other blockchain tokens. And I have a question can we like combine like Ethereum dot or SUSI tokens in the bundles into Cardano network? And how would you, like, if you send them out, how would they actually receive them, because they are all in Cardano?
Again, this is still on development, and I'm not really sure how will be eventually developed or integrated on the ledger. but we can assume that we having this piece, which is the ERC converter, what will happen will be that you will mint a native token like the gimbals or the coins that we minted in the testnet. Sushi coins will be one more native token. That's my bet and guess, but I'm not sure if they will be. For example, we have a concept in the minting, which is the policy script, and I guess that when you mint a token, we will have complex policies that will make the token you're minting, for example, non-fungible. At this moment, as far as I know, as far as I have been able to catch up with IOHK development, you cannot do it. You just mint tokens and you can burn them, actually burn them, destroy them. But yeah, I guess and hope that you will be able to have Ether running on top of Cardano, and they will behave just like ADA with the full feature set that native ADA has.
Yeah, but I feel like this then brings in like another interesting point to highlight the difference between the way Cardano treats assets and Ethereum. James, do you care to just kind of extrapolate a little bit of that, and then we can perhaps finally move on to Roberto's presentation?
I'm just so excited to see the toys. Yeah. So to put it as quickly as possible, on Ethereum, you have to run a smart contract in order to mint tokens. On Cardano, you don't. It's built into the ledger. And if you can imagine the contract for minting your tokens, there's a lot of boilerplate in there. So a lot of people can just cut and paste what somebody else did. But even when you do that and you go in to tweak the parameters of that contract, there's plenty of room for human error, right? And so you had to have a high level of both technical knowledge and attention to detail in order to make sure that you were minting an ERC20 token, for example, in the right way. Cardano has learned from that, right? And has actually built something that's more secure, more user-friendly, more accessible by eliminating this need to draw up the contract itself and just being able to create what's called a native token. It has all of the underlying power of ADA. It can do all the things except for pay for the network itself, right?
Yeah. I feel like perhaps a good analogy here is equivalent of being a citizen of a country, right? So like native level, and then being, say, someone who's on a visa where you have to, you're not operating on the base level, right? That a citizen would. You're sort of operating on this sort of, sub level that's on top of that, where you don't have as much. Well, it's not as stable, right? Say, I don't know, you have to keep applying for a visa or, that kind of thing. I feel like that's perhaps, so yeah, on Cardano, like every token is a resident, like it is a resident and a citizen, right? But
Right.
On Ethereum, basically Ethereum is the only citizen. And all other tokens are basically just living on top of that.
And there's open questions. Like I haven't yet heard a straight answer, for example, on what it will mean to list native assets on an exchange, right? So if ADA is on an exchange and you mint a token that's like ADA, does that automatically mean it can just be exchanged there? So that's just one example of the kinds of questions it'll be fun to both hear about and play with in reality once this stuff is live.
Yeah. And actually, I think a good reference point here is Coinbase have sort of outlined how they go about listing coins or tokens. So that, again, given that it's prevalence or sort of status in the ecosystem, that would be a good sort of reference point to sort of to look at what the sort of best practices are, because I feel like they've taken the approach that they look at stuff fundamentally. So I think from a technical level, if a token on Cardano has the same technical astuteness or what's the word I'm looking for, strength, I suppose, from a technical level as ADA does, I think that that already gives them an assurance. But what doesn't give them an assurance is other things, like what's the nature of it, is it like a security or in a particular geography and that kind of thing. But yeah, I completely agree that's going to be
It sounds like you're saying that Coinbase would be able to trust the back end, but not necessarily the front end, right? That the tech is going to be there. Who's building what on it? Hey, we're still going to need some rules,
exactly,
gateways around that.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So awesome conversation. Now let's transition over to yeah.
Okay.
The terminal.
So what we have here, this is a passive node, which I call passive node, and it's basically the very exact same deployment that I use for my stake pool. And what I call passive, we usually call relays. Are those Cardano nodes that are in front of your block producer, but doesn't produce or participate in the network in an active way. So this is a testnet node connected to the IOHK Launchpad network, which is the network they are using to be in the future, and that supports all the new features before the public testnet, which is another official testnet that anybody can participate on it. This one is a bit more restricted because you don't have a faucet to request ADA for example, registering a stake pool here. So that's it. We have just a couple of processes running here.
So if I could just to kind of try and, like, from a noob perspective, summarize, there are 3 layers, right? So you've got the mainnet, which is open publicly, and that's running on everyone who's a stake pool is running the mainnet, right? That's like the general base layer. And then on top of that, you've got a sandbox, which is the public testnet, which is Allegra / Mary, or they're going to be different versions.
The public testnet tries to mimic mainnet as much as possible. So it's just, for example, we are forking onto Allegra today on mainnet, but we did it on testnet yesterday. So we try to mimic the as much as possible, because of course there is not that much people that wants to spend resources on running a testnet with fake ADA, which will return them nothing but the experience of testing things. So that's the public testnet, which is currently on Allegra. But this launchpad is already on Mary. Allegra, just as a reminder, Allegra era provides of token locking, which is a feature we need to lock tokens on exchange so they cannot participate, for example, on voting on Catalyst and those kind of things. And Mary is the era that will bring us new multi-assets and token minting and all that stuff, which is pretty exciting.
Awesome. Okay, and then so now base layer, mainnet, public testnet tries to mimic mainnet as close as possible, and then on top of that, you've got quite a restricted, like IOHK or IOG specific testnet.
Launchpad.
Oh yeah, which is Launchpad. Okay,
Launchpad.
awesome, cool.
Launchpad testnet already on Mary era. In the future, I got some ADA to test things here, and we'll try to mint some tokens.
Awesome.
So we first I want to show that, well, this layout of directories may sound familiar to somebody using CN tools from the guild community. I'm using the same layout, although I use CN tools on a very particular way because I'm running on Kubernetes and my setup is a bit weird. But this layout of directories is from CN tools. And here I have a couple of wallets. I have the exchange one, which is, oh, sorry, you don't pass a file for Cardano Key, you pass an address. Here's, I have some Lovelaces to test things. And I have already sent some to the CSK5 wallet. We have 2 ADA, 2 million Lovelace, which is 2 ADA. And with that amount, we already can mint a token. So it's pretty cheap. Basically, it's as cheap as a typical, a regular transaction. For that, I took as inspiration of usage, I took some scripts from a pull request, which is still on development, and I made myself this script, which I will try to explain in a quickly way. So in Cardano, every network has a network magic. It's like an ID. For this Launchpad testnet is number 3. All these 6 lines will be the arguments for this script, but it's just, I just statically set all of them. So we have the network magic, which is the ID for the testnet. We need a source address and a destination address to send the tokens we will be minting. And as you can see, I'm using the same address for destination, which will mean that this wallet will end up having the Lovelaces and the new tokens minted, minus the fees. So we need the source address, destination address, the payment secret key, and we have these 2 arguments, which are the token name, and this time will be a special Cardano Starter Kit token. We will be minting 100 of them. And let's start with the cryptic part. So first step that the script will perform is creating the policy script, which at this moment, as far as I know, this is the single policy you can use, which is basically a hash. It's a JSON object, which I guess in the future will have the ability to specify that this token we will be minting, the policy for the token we will be minting, will restrict the token to be burned, to be destroyed. So it will become a non-fungible token, or I don't know, maybe I'm not really sure of that part and the features they will have. So I won't go deep on that. But this is the first part. For minting a token, we need to create a policy that will define how the token will behave. For transacting with the network, we need to know the protocol params. So with this command, we just query the blockchain and save the protocol params in a file which we will be using later. Also, we need to know how many UTXO unexpended transactions the wallet has, what's the amount of tokens, the amount of coins the wallet we use as source address has. This is bash scripting for on the fly query the UTXOs and make some arguments that we will use later.
So quick question. So this point is basically because you need existing ADA in order to actually pay to sort of mint or create a new token, right?
Yep. Whenever you want to create a transaction on Cardano, you need to specify input UTXOs, which are basically tokens you have on I don't want to go too deep on the UTXOs, but you can have a wallet with, I will try to explain it quickly. You can have a wallet with 10 ADA, but those 10 ADAs are part of different UTXOs. So when you sum all the UTXOs that compose your wallet, you have the 10 ADA in total. So for creating a transaction, you need to specify which UTXOs from your wallet you want to use, and those UTXOs need to sum the amount of ADA you want to send. And that's this third step. We calculate which are the UTXOs we want to use, which in this case are all of them, and which is the amount of UTXOs. You need to specify that also. And the fourth step, it's very tricky and ugly, messy bash scripting I put in place to sum all the balances on the wallet. It will, as you can see here, it differences between different tokens. I save one file for each token the wallet owns. I basically sum all the amounts and save them to a file. Fifth step is calculate the fees we will need to pay as minimum for the transaction, and for that we need to build a transaction body with 0 fees that will be the input for this command that actually calculates from the transaction body, which will be the minimum fee based on the protocol params of this network, because Launchpad testnet can have a different protocol parameters that define the minimum cost for a transaction. So we draft a transaction, we calculate the fees, and then we actually build the transaction with the UTXOs we extracted in the beginning, and the transaction output of this will be, it has this format. You usually send Lovelaces, just ADA, and you use the destination address, and you put a plus and then say how much Lovelaces you want to send. And in this case, since we will be playing with other coins on this wallet, we append these things, the policy ID, the name, and that's information that you can find on Cardano.org. It's already updated to reflect Mary era futures. So if you want to go deeper in this, ask me or ask us, or go to the Cardano.org. The mint part, where we just specify the amount we want to mint, the policy ID we calculated on the first step, and the token name. This is the syntax for that. We actually output the transaction with the correct fees calculated, and then we can proceed to signing and submitting. For signing, we need obviously our payment key for the wallet, and also if you are minting, you need the policy secret key. That means that not anyone could sign a transaction containing a token if they don't have the secret key for that token. Not anyone could mint new Gimbal tokens or maybe tokens or whatever tokens if they don't own the actual secret key for them. We also include the script, which is a JSON object we saw at the beginning, which is just a hash, but in the future probably will include features for this token. We specify the transaction body we built in the previous step, and we specify the output, which will be basically the transaction body but SafeNet, which is then ready to be submitted to the testnet, to the network, and it's this easy. So I don't know if you have any questions about all of this. It's dark because it's in a terminal a script, or we can go and mint some token.
I could tell it. Okay.
Go ahead, Tavo.
Actually, when I started reading, I think I was lost in 10th row already. But then I was starting thinking that is there a domain-specific language to write this bash, or you really need to know every place where you have to put double like spaces, where you put the dots and where you need to grep and whatever. Because I don't use bash commands, but when you talked it and when I just didn't look the code but just try to understand you, it didn't seem too complicated. You use the same thing, you just reference before, you create something, then you use it for another thing, and you then create another thing, and you use, and so on.
Yeah. So, for me, I mean, there are many people that doesn't love Bash because it's not a full language, so it can be a bit tricky to do things in a human readable way. But for me, it mostly depends on who wrote the Bash script. Answering your question, I don't know what's the current state of the art, for example, for the Cardano library from Emurgo, but you will have higher level of abstraction libraries that will ease all of this. For example, with the libraries from Emurgo, you can also already include metadata on transactions. So it's a matter of time. We have DSL and probably Bluetooth already supports, or Bluetooth and Marlow already supports some easier or more human friendlier way to go through this process. But currently I couldn't answer you specifically if we already have the future on Marlowe, for example.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Tavo. I feel, actually, that's one of the things that I wrote down in terms of asking, because on Ethereum, if you want to create, I know on Ethereum and on Waves as well, if you want to create a token, like it's pretty straightforward. Like there's a user interface where you've got a text field, like enter the token name here, what's the supply, what's the max supply, all these kind of basic steps, which obviously you've shown, but in sort of in code form, as opposed to sort of user friendly format. So I would assume that at some point there will be, whether it will be inside Daedalus or some other place, that such a tool will actually sort of come into existence at some point.
Yeah. And
James? No, okay, yeah, go on, Robert.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to highlight that Cardano CLI command line interface or tool, it's the first class citizen on supporting new features. So we try to be on the bleeding edge and try things with the Cardano CLI, but it's a matter of time that libraries from whoever in the community support attaching a policy script and signing a transaction with an extra key, secret key, which will be the policy secret key. So I'm not aware of what's the current state of the art, but it's a matter of really soon. It's
cool. James,
can you highlight that in that first Cardano CLI line you have there underneath policy V key, policy S key? There's this line that says Cardano CLI address key gen. So that's
a comment, I think, right?
This is the actual command line. What's the word I'm looking for? But if you look at the Cardano documentation for Cardano node, you'll see Cardano CLI address key gen, and then you'll see these parameters that go with it. So in Bash, we've got these 2 dashes that represent the name of the parameter, and then we've got the value of that parameter, which what Roberto has already abstracted here by turning those into variables, which are set above, right? And the reason I'm saying this is anything that we can turn into a variable on the command line, we can abstract layers above that, right? So in just a minute, I was playing with these scripts yesterday, and honestly, Roberto, I got to say it ran too smoothly. I wanted more feedback from the command line. I wanted that user experience of it saying, "Hey, we're minting, like the magic is happening." But I just pressed enter, and suddenly I had tokens, and I was like, "Man, I've got 3 new files on my computer right now." But I would have loved a little more pomp and circumstance. So right, and I was reflecting one way that I could do that for myself, just to give myself that experience, would be to go up to the top of this file, and instead of setting these variables in advance, token amount equals 100, token name equals CSK005, etc. These are all things that could be turned into variable or command line arguments. Exactly, right? So this would give the user at least the experience of typing those things in. And then of course, what's another level above that? It's not using the command line at all. It's having a beautiful 2-dimensional user GUI interface where people can come to choose these numbers. But honestly, like that's kind of the easy part, right? Once you have this going on in the background, now connecting to this through an API, that's all what's on its way, right?
That's it.
I have another question about, like James mentioned that after you mint the tokens, you get 3 files. What files are those? I understand there's a transaction output, I guess some kind of private key, and what is the third one?
They are basically this. I create a directory with the name of the token, and they are these 3: the script, which is the actual policy the token will follow, and verification key file and the secret key file to be able to mint tokens with this key hash, which is the derivative from the verification key.
But this seems like an input, not an output. Or you mean you can input these files and then it will hash it, like it put values into the files, or
you actually generate them with this, the verification key and the secret key, and then you derive the ID or the key hash for the token from the verification key. So this is not input, but it's generated and serve as input for the policy script, which will be then by this calculation, by this cryptographic derivation, you will
combine
the script for the new token with the keys.
Okay, but if somebody gets to hold this one script, can he read what is on it, or can he, like when I mint 33 tokens and I send him these 3 files, can he see that what is in that hash, or it's
Yeah, they are. We have some samples here. I'm not here.
Because I assume they are just like a bunch of letters and numbers.
Yeah. Let's have this spam token as example, and you will see that all of them are in fact JSON files with the type of crypto algorithm they use, a binary representation of the key, which is CBOR in CBOR format. This one is the same, but it's the verification one, and the script is just what we saw in the script before the minter script. Those are they are like the actual transactions we have here. They are JSON files, including transaction type and a binary representation of the transaction, which is a bunch of letters and numbers.
Cool. Awesome. This so far has been super, super awesome. And I feel like actually keeping it awesome, short and succinct is actually better or best. And then, we can have a different session where we actually, go into, the real time minting of tokens themselves. Having said that, just a few things that I want to highlight. I suppose this kind of goes back to the reference that I made in terms of, just, starting these things informally and, learning as we go and iterating and, having the learnings actually feedback into the structure of the thing. I suppose there's a particular level of understanding, say, that was required even just to watch this, right? So, for example, you touched on the sort of containerized nature of wait, hang on, let me actually just disable a lot of this so that we can actually the container. It was funny how everyone just straightened their back. Oh, the picture's bigger. Yeah, things like containerization, Kubernetes, and so on, and referencing CN tools. And even things as simple as an API, right? Some people don't understand what application programming interface is. So I feel like we have in a way our sort of our homework set in terms of figuring out how to best structure this, because the audience here isn't just those who are, here's the thing: people who are already technically minded most likely don't need videos like this. Like, I would argue, right? They don't mind going, combing through the code and and going to forums and finding answers in a different way. So it's already sort of defined for us that that is not our audience, and so we just sort of I suppose what I'm saying here is primarily myself, but also in collaboration with all of you folks, in terms of actually trying to understand the nature of the structure of how to actually communicate a bunch of this. And so I feel like, in summary, today we covered token creation. We have, as I said, a whole bunch of stuff that we need to sort of just be conscious of. And Joshua joined us in the chat. I don't know whether you guys saw that. He said that let me see, let me highlight it.
The whole ABCD was working today, and maybe a few of them were watching. So ABCD, Port Hardcore, we love ya.
Exactly. Yeah. Shout out to our brothers and sisters out in Nigeria. So Joshua said definitely making ABCD tokens. So, and to which actually I said this to him, that it would be nice to have him on to talk tokenomics, because again, going back to one of the many things that we have spoken about in sort of private conversations here is there are three other elements, which is community, computation, and commerce, right? These are sort of the three legs, or three key legs of Cardano that we hope to actually address here. And obviously, commerce is the tokenomics element of it, understanding the psychology behind it, understanding game theory, incentivization, all these sort of really interesting and rich things that can then create a good base, as well as sort of different sort of detailed varied examples of different people's tokenomic story, right? Basically sort of create these examples that people coming on and watching are able to be like, that's giving me a great idea of how to fundamentally think of my token, as opposed to just being like, let me go to the interface or the command line and create a token without really understanding the psychology and the human nature that actually fundamentally affects these things, right? So guys, I suppose in typical fashion, I know Tevo is not the biggest fan of closing thoughts, but so shall we go so from James, Roberto, Tevo, and then me, I'll just sort of close it off.
Sure. So I was certain this was going to be a 20-minute conversation, but as you can see, there's always so much more, so many different ways to take the conversation. So, thanks for beginning to wrap us up when you did, and for saying that, right? Like there's different audiences and there's different things people are going to take away. I really wish we had gotten to the part where we could show the token and the bundle.
1 minute far from that.
I'm gonna hand it off. I'm gonna hand it off to Roberto to give his last words, and maybe he can hijack the screen.
Okay, so I feel like in the sense that all these token things are pretty complex, although we can start minting in 1 minute. Then what? And there is a lot of deep understanding of, I'm not gonna say money, but deep understanding on how we manage value. And these tokens are a way to represent how we exchange this value, how we use this value power to govern things. It will be an awesome journey. We are getting there. And if you want, we can mint some ABCT tokens before we leave. And I will give James more feeling than a blank screen saying it's done.
Pomp and circumstance.
I'm going to do it for myself. Yeah, that's going to be an extension exercise when we release the rest of the starter kit. That's fun.
Yeah. All right, Tevo.
I would even add to the Roberto that it's cool that we now we have a tool. We can create tokens which are already secure and we know they are approved, and now the real work starts. How we brand them, how we give them a value, how we teach to people to use them. And a takeaway from me from this video is actually for the newcomers who maybe just watched the whole thing, they now saw how like all the layers, what it takes, what skills people need. Like, because I didn't actually even I didn't know that the bash is the first code what like developers use and then developed on. I kind of assumed there is just a tool and then we're gonna use it, but there already is like a very raw version of that, which just gives a picture to the people who see that okay, it starts from here and this is how it boils, and yeah, it's a starting point. And
it's
now
a proto point.
Exactly. First principles. Yeah, the origin. Proto. Yeah. Guys, this has been super, super awesome. Thank you for your time and all the knowledge that you've actually brought to the table. This is just the beginning. The idea behind Cast.live is to in many ways, be an environment where we can, where a whole bunch of different programs are going to be running. Again, eventually not just me at the helm, having other folks actually, running this thing, and having programs which are really varied. So Proto is just one. They're going to be others like like Catalyst is one. There's going to be one Spotlight, where we'll be sort of having conversations with stake pool operators and really getting to understand what it means and what it takes to be a stake pool operator, having conversations with those who are actually creating stake pools with a purpose, right? As opposed to just running a node, and maybe even breaking things down, like what Roberto spoke about in terms of having the block producer and like the sort of relay nodes, right? And understanding what that is, and perhaps giving like an example, like to say the block producer is the king and the relay nodes are the messengers, right? The king stays safe in the castle, and the messengers, the peasants, the plebs, get sent on errands and so on. Yeah, so basically a whole bunch of different programs. So yeah, reach out. You can email me at cast.live. And yeah, guys, so yeah, in summary, thank you very much. Let's actually just close this off on time. Round of applause, guys.
Thanks, A.
Awesome.